In this video, we're going to learn how to use the quadratic formula to solve for values of x. So the quadratic formula says that negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a would equal to values of x. You'll notice that we have the symbol plus minus, meaning that we're actually going to have two values. Because if you remember, when we're using a quadratic formula, not like the diamond method, we're trying to find two values that when you multiply them, we'd have something like this. So we're trying to figure out what these values are, and we can use quadratic formula to solve for that. So next we see that we have an a, we have a b, and we have a c. So we need to figure out what those values are. So that's actually going to stand for the values that we see in front of our equation right here. A will actually be imaginary, be an imaginary 1 in front. So if we put this, we're going to have 1 for a, negative 3 for b, and negative 4 for c. With that, we can plug it into our equation. So we'd have negative times negative 3 plus or minus the square root of negative 3 squared minus 4 times 1 times negative 4 all over 2 times 1. Now we can simplify this out for x. So x would be equal to negative times a negative will be positive plus or minus the square root of 9. And we have 4 times 1 times negative 4. That's going to be a positive 16 all over 2 times 1, which will be 2. Simplifying this out more, we'd have 3 plus or minus the square root of 25 over 2. And we can actually simplify that square root of 25 to 5. And so now we have 3 plus or minus 5 over 2. Now remember, we have two values that we're solving for. We're going to have one that's a positive and one that's a negative, and that's why we see that symbol plus minus. So that means we're going to have one value of x where it's 3 plus 5 over 2. And we'll have another value where x is equal to 3 minus 5 over 2. We can simplify this to 8 over 2, which should be equal to 4. We can simplify this to negative 2 over 2, which should be equal to negative 1. And those two values would be our answer. Moving on to the next example, so we'll put in our values for a, b, and c, where a is going to be equal to 1/2, b will equal negative 3, and c will equal to 5 over 2. Now this is where it comes in handy to actually use the quadratic formula. We have two instances of fractions. Sometimes if we have decimals, it's really hard to figure out what those values of x could be. So what we need to do is we'll plug this in. So we're going to have that x is equal to negative 3 plus or minus the square root of negative 3 squared minus 4 times 1 over 2 times 5 over 2 all over 2 times 1 over 2. We can simplify this out, so negative times a negative will be positive, plus or minus the square root of 9 minus 4 times 1/2 will give us negative 2 times 5 over 2. All over 2 times 1/2 will be 1. So we can simplify this out more. We get 3 plus or minus the square root of 9 minus 2 over 2 will cancel out, so that'll be 5. And then over 1, we can leave that alone now. So we'll get 3 plus or minus the square root of 4, which is equal to 3 plus or minus 2. So we're going to have two values of x again. We're going to have one with the positive, so that would be 3 plus 2. One with the negative will be 3 minus 2. Simplify that out, we'll get 5 and 1 for our answers. Moving on to the next question, again, we need to figure out what our values are for a, b, and c. A will be equal to 1, because remember that there's an imaginary 1 in front of that. B will be negative 7, and c will be negative 3. We're going to plug it into our equation, so we're going to get negative times negative 7 plus or minus the square root of negative 7 squared minus 4 times 1 times negative 3 all over 2a, so that's going to be 2 times 1. Simplify this out, negative times a negative will be a positive, plus or minus the square root of 49 times negative 4 times 1 times negative 3 will give us positive 12 all over 2. Simplifying this further, we're going to get 7 plus or minus the square root of 61 over 2. Now we can't simplify 61. That's a prime number, and on top of it, it doesn't have a perfect square. So we can leave this as our answer, and again, we're going to have two answers for this. We're going to have one where we have 7 plus square root of 61 over 2, and we'll have another answer of 7 minus the square root of 61 over 2. And sometimes, depending on your teacher, you can live it like this, or you can solve for those individual values, but those are going to be our final two answers.